Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about a feeling that, let's be honest, is super familiar to so many of us, but is also really misunderstood, and that's anxiety. So let's dive right in.
You know that feeling, right? That sense of unease, that tension, but you can't quite put your finger on what's causing it. Well, that's a classic sign of anxiety. It is a fundamental human experience, and today we are going to unpack exactly why it happens and what it all means.
Okay, so let's start with the big question. What exactly is anxiety? Well, for one, it's way more than just a passing feeling. It's a really complex emotional state. If you look it up, you'll see it's described as this deep-seated feeling of inner turmoil. It's not just worrying, it's a kind of dread about what might happen down the road. You can think of it as this generalized, unfocused restlessness that just kind of hangs around.
Now, a lot of us, myself included, use the words fear and anxiety like they're the same thing. But psychologically speaking, they are actually quite different. So let's break down that distinction because it's a big one.
So here it is, the key difference. Fear is about the now, and anxiety is all about the future. Fear is your body's alarm system going off when a car is literally speeding towards you. It's immediate, it's real. Anxiety, on the other hand, is worrying that a car might hit you tomorrow, or maybe next week on a road you haven't even decided to take yet. See the difference?
And anxiety isn't just something that happens in your head. Oh no, it has a powerful physical footprint, and your body feels it in some very, very real ways. All of these symptoms, that's your body's ancient fight or flight system kicking into high gear. It's a survival mechanism, right? It's preparing you for a threat that, in the case of anxiety, often only exists in your mind. Your body is basically dressed up and ready for a battle that isn't actually happening. Now, research actually links this whole physical experience to something called autonomic dysfunction. So think of your nervous system as having a gas pedal, that's a sympathetic branch, and a brake, the parasympathetic. Well, with chronic anxiety, your foot is just stuck on the gas. A lower heart rate variability, or HRV, is a really reliable marker of this imbalance. Your body is just stuck in a constant state of high alert.
So that leads to a pretty important question. If there's no immediate, real threat, where in the world does this feeling come from? Well, that brings us to the incredibly powerful role of our own thoughts.
The psychologist Carl Jung had this just beautiful way of describing this vague sense of dread. He called it fear spread thinly. And that just perfectly captures it, doesn't it? That feeling of unfocused, almost free-floating worry that feels like it's coming from nowhere and everywhere all at once. But modern approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, they offer a different take. They actually challenge that whole idea of free-floating anxiety. Instead, they argue that it's always anchored to a specific thought or a belief, even if we're not totally aware of it. And this leads us to a really key concept. Okay, check out this model. It shows how we often create a whole secondary problem. We get anxious about feeling anxious. So look at A, the presentation isn't the real issue here. The real problem is B, that rigid, irrational belief, that thought that says, I absolutely must not feel anxious. That's what creates the intense panic at C. But, and this is the really powerful part, when you get to D, you get to become a detective for your own thoughts. You dispute that belief. You ask yourself, wait a minute, where is it written that I must not feel anxious? Is that some law of the universe? And asking that just dismantles the catastrophic thinking. It allows you to move to E, a much more flexible and realistic belief. And that simple shift is what gets you to F, a new feeling that's manageable, not totally overwhelming.
Now, it's so important to remember that anxiety isn't always the bad guy. I mean, a certain amount of it is totally normal. It's even protective. It's a fundamental emotion that's literally hardwired into us for survival.
So the big question is, where's that line? When does this natural protective response cross over and become something more like a disorder? Well, the key distinction really lies in the impact it has on our daily lives. Basically, if anxiety is stopping you from working or from socializing or just from living your life the way you actually want to, that's when it's likely crossed the line into a clinical issue, something that can be managed with professional support. But what if the anxiety sticks around, even when we try to address our thought patterns? Sometimes what we label as chronic anxiety might actually be a sign of something deeper, what some call a spiritual hunger. Now, this isn't about food. It's about a hunger for meaning, for connection, or for inner peace. It's that nagging feeling that something's missing, even when on the surface, everything seems totally fine. So the question to leave you with is this. Is your anxiety protecting you, or is it holding you captive?
Really understanding its source and its function is the first big step toward managing it. Whether it's a physical response, a tricky thought pattern, or a deeper hunger for meaning, just recognizing what it is gives you the power to start addressing it. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer.